ADHD, bardzo popularny ostatnio temat, ale tyle się o nim publikuje, że coraz ciężej odróżnić fakty od różnych bzdur. Dlatego, żeby nie teoretyzować, pomyślałem, że fajnie byłoby posłuchać kogoś, kto rzeczywiście mierzy się z tym problemem, a przy okazji jest też bardzo świadomy siebie i swojej diagnozy. Dzisiaj będzie więc o 5 typowych objawach ADHD, ale w wyjątkowy sposób, bo z perspektywy autorów książki Brudne, pranie, ADHD u dorosłych i jak sobie z nim radzić. Roxanne i Richard są małżeństwem i od lat publikują swoje doświadczenia związane z ADHD na bardzo popularnym profilu ADHD Love. I Roxanne jest osobą, która ma zdiagnozowane ADHD. Richard żyje z nią od lat w tej relacji, też nauczył się, jak to wygląda właśnie z takiej perspektywy partnera osoby, która kocha osobę zmagającą się z tą dolegliwością, więc bardzo ciekawą perspektywę tutaj przedstawiają. Nasz cel to pokazać objawy za pomocą prawdziwych, osobistych, nieupiększonych historii, bez tematów tabu i bez niedomówień. Dzięki tej książce poznacie największe wyzwania, z jakimi się zmagałam i dowiecie się nie tylko, w jaki sposób radzę sobie z ADHD, ale też jak wspólnie z moim mężem pracuję nad tym, żeby stworzyć ciepły, bezpieczny dom, w którym jest miejsce na śmiech i współczucie. Jeżeli temat ADHD jest bliski Wam lub komuś z Waszych bliskich, to bardzo polecam książkę Brudne, pranie. Link do niej znajdziecie w opisie tego odcinka. A teraz posłuchajmy o objawach właśnie z perspektywy Roxanne i Richarda. Objaw pierwszy. Rozregulowanie emocjonalne.
Now I would say the hardest part is the emotional dysregulation. So this is another big part of ADHD spectrum. So this might be anger issues, or it might be panic attack feelings, it might be sadness. ADHD people can struggle to emotionally regulate. And I was someone who was very, very ashamed of emotion for a very long time. Didn't grow up in a house where emotion was okay. And because I had big emotions as a kid, that was really shamed. So I had learnt to just suppress, hold it back, don't let anything out in anger and sadness. And it's been a real journey with therapy, and also then what we learn in therapy, going and applying it in real life, to just learn to let people see. I very often lose things, my wallet, my bag, I'm very often running late, and that will bring a panic attack type reaction from me. Quick breathing, heart going fast, I'm sweating, I might start crying. And I used to just hide that and force it down. But now I'm really trying to show. And it still brings me some embarrassment and some shame to go and say, like, I need a cuddle, and then start crying, or I'm struggling to breathe, have a cuddle, to allow another human to see quite how dysregulated I am. But I really am working on it, and I hope it just gets easier.
Objaw drugi. Problemy administracyjne.
It was administration problems that really, really led to chaos. So with ADHD, that it's an executive dysfunction problem. So simple tasks that have steps that other people can see, you cannot see. So things like opening a bill and paying a direct debit feels incredibly overwhelming. So this was back in my days when I was drinking as well, and I didn't have the support of you or a therapist. So my way I would deal with it, I would just ignore bills and letters, and even legal letters, to the point where I wasn't paying my electricity bill, and they were sending letters I didn't read, even though it says urgent. I can't deal with it because there's nothing I can do. To the point where eventually, I speak about it in the book, people came to the house and took out my electricity box and put a pay-as-you-go meter in. And even then, I couldn't go and top it up. So I would be sat in my flat in the dark, knowing that if I could just walk to the shop on the corner with £5, I could turn the lights on.
Objaw trzeci. Zaburzona percepcja czasu.
So it's extremely common in people diagnosed with ADHD to also have issues with time and the kind of term it's taken on in society is time blindness. At the moment, it's not part of the official DSM diagnosis, but so many people in the community seem to have it that potentially in the future we might see it added. So it's essentially a difficulty in comprehending segments of time, and very often people with ADHD are either extremely early, anxiety about being late will cause them to be very early, or no matter how hard they try, they're late. We polled our audience and we had about 30,000 votes from people, and it was roughly 50-50 between anxiously early or extremely late. 2% of people said that they were on time, so it's a really common thing that it's affecting people. To speak about it from my particular view, which is part of the spectrum, of course, different for everyone, it's that I kind of operate on 2 times, which is now or never. So if I get a text and I respond now, great. If I leave it for later, it's not happening. I will just completely forget about it. If I'm doing something in the day and we have dinner plans, whatever I'm doing in the day, I'm totally engrossed. It's now, I can't even remember I'm doing something. So often that can overrun, you can miss appointments, that can be late. So it's just that sense of like inner clock that some people seem to have just isn't there. So you're kind of operating in this very odd way where whatever is in front of you is happening and everything else ceases to exist, unfortunately.
Objaw 4. Impulsywność.
Yeah, it is. And again, I kind of call them the darker days before I had any support, and then what it looks like now. So the symptom is still there, but it presents differently depending on your understanding and the lifestyle you lead. So in my 20s, with no understanding, with lots of alcohol, this would be catching a flight because I want to go to Amsterdam for the weekend when I have no money and putting it on a credit card. Those kind of behaviours are risky behaviours, drinking, drug taking, going out for days on end. So actually where impulsivity can put your health at risk and put you in financial problems that cause a lot of stress. So at that point, it was incredibly difficult. Now I'm not booking a plane to go to Amsterdam to smoke drugs. That's not the life I'm in now, but it really does still show up, and it will show up in terms of I might find something, as an example, when the weather turns nice, I will decide, oh, I want to be outside. I'll go and start researching things you can do outside. I'll find a canoe centre maybe 50 minutes away from where we live. And I have to go now. We have to go today. Even if it's 4 p.m, we have to go now. And, you know, sometimes obviously that's not possible. But in our house, we're quite open to just last minute plans and that desire to go and experience something, see something, really cool things, really fun experiences. But it's very impulsive in that it's often decided that moment and we're then off in the car, off kayaking or off to the beach the next moment. So I think it's a lot more tamed and it's a lot healthier nowadays.
But still an adventure.
Yeah, still an adventure, just a bit safer, yeah.
Yeah.
Objaw 5. Zakochiwanie się.
So I think one really interesting thing to talk about is the experience itself of falling in love and how, I mean, it's devastatingly wonderful to anybody. But when you look through this ADHD lens and you bring in impulsiveness and you bring in emotional dysregulation, hyperfocus, it magnifies. So that honeymoon period is like times 10. So it's an incredibly powerful experience. There's a lot of dopamine. It's one of nature's most powerful drugs, and that's wonderful. But when that then subsides, when those chemicals subside, it can really feel like a loss. And I had just overlapping relationships, so many relationships lasting 1 year. I just never managed to keep that high. And I thought that this had meant I was no longer in love, because that obsession from the beginning wasn't there.
Well, I think that we can easily say now that without the diagnosis and the support and the curiosity and all of the research and understanding that came after that, I don't think we would have been together. I think we would have broken up, because obviously when we first got together, like everybody, there's a honeymoon period where everything's fine and everything's accepted and everything's quirky and fun. But really quickly, things will start to, after that's kind of worn off, things would start to get frustrating. So being late, you know, being untidy, not being considered, these were all things that I was naturally starting to feel. And we decided, you know, and it was a similar time to Rox's diagnosis, that's when you get to make a choice. Like you either judge that or be curious and explore ways to cohabit, I guess.
Jeżeli chcecie poznać więcej doświadczeń i objawów z perspektywy autorów, to jeszcze raz polecam Wam książkę Brudne, pranie. Link do niej znajdziecie w opisie tego odcinka. Jeżeli zaciekawił Was temat funkcjonowania w relacji z ADHD, z osobą, która zmaga się z ADHD, to jeszcze większą część rozmowy będę publikował na moim nowym kanale Rozmowy łóżkowe. Tam właśnie rozmawialiśmy o tym z perspektywy obu autorów, jak wygląda miłość, jak wygląda związek, kiedy to ADHD się pojawia. Myślę, że też bardzo fajna rozmowa, wyszła około 20 minut, więc zapraszam. Co myślicie w ogóle o takiej formie, kiedy wypowiada się ktoś ze swojej perspektywy, jest to bardziej z praktyki, a nie tylko story? Dajcie koniecznie znać w komentarzach, jakie może jeszcze inne tematy chcielibyście, żeby pojawiły się tutaj na kanale. Jeżeli Wam się podobało, zostawcie koniecznie kciuka w górę, bardzo pomaga z zasięgiem. Zachęcam też do subskrybowania i widzimy się już niedługo. Do zobaczenia.